You're standing on a branch, high off the ground, in a dark forest. You have no idea how you got there, but shadowy creatures with glowing eyes and bright fangs are gathering beneath you. You need my help. This is a voice from darkness. Hello all, this is parapsychologist Dr. Malcolm Ryder, here to help you with your supernatural, paranormal and otherworldly problems. And in just a little bit, we're going to open up the phone lines so I can take your calls and do just that. But first, we'll go into our national alerts, which we have a few of tonight. So let's jump right into those. Our first national alert this evening is for Carroll, West Virginia. I'm afraid to say that the jack-o'-lantern murderer has claimed 4 victims so far this season. The Harrison family of Carroll, a family of 4, have gone missing. Found in their home were pumpkins carved in their likenesses. Let us hope that this is the only incident of this kind that occurs this season. Our second national alert is for Laurel, Mississippi. It's been 92 years. And so, it's time for the Goliath cicadas to dig their way out of the earth, shed their skins, and devour much of the area yet again, as they last did nearly a century ago. It's recommended all those within 80 miles of Laurel relocate for at least the next 2 months as the cicadas go through the above-ground portion of their life cycle. And our third national alert is for Lihue, Hawaii. Residents of the island town have noticed the ghostly presence of dozens of men dressed in Civil War uniforms, both Union and Confederate. Now, I probably don't need to tell you this, but as a reminder, no Civil War battle was fought in what at the time was the independent Kingdom of Hawaii. But there was a reenactment society that traveled to Lihue in 1992 to give a demonstration of the Battle of Shiloh. Afterwards, to celebrate, they drank moonshine made by the reenactor portraying General Albert Sidney Johnston. He'd made the beverage using what he believed were historic methods common at battlefield camps. The tainted alcohol killed the entire reenactment society. So, if you're a resident of Lihue, do not fear. Your island is not being taken over by Civil War ghosts, merely haunted by 1990s reenactors, which probably isn't anything to worry about. Though, please be advised, do not consume any beverages they might offer you. All right, and that's it for National Alerts tonight. Our phone lines are now open, and we have a caller. Hello, you're speaking with Dr. Malcolm Ryder. Why don't you tell us your name and what supernatural problem you're currently experiencing?
Hello, Malcolm. Good to speak with you once again.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I recognize your voice. Who is this?
My name, as I've told you many times prior, is Rene Dupont. I exist with a rare condition where few people are able to retain memories of me.
Well, I've read of such cases before.
Yes, of course you have. Cutwell, whose town couldn't form new memories of him past the age of 8, and Pullman, who after disappearing one night came back the next day and her family had completely forgotten her. Those are your usual go-to case studies on the matter.
Right, okay. So, I take it from your perspective, I more or less give you the same conversation each time we talk.
Oh, only during introductions, but that is quite common for me. I've grown used to it. In the same way, chess masters are used to playing the same opening moves at the beginning of a game. The Roy Lopez, the Caro-Kann, the Queen's Gambit, and the like. Past the first several moves, any game of chess becomes its own uniquely played thing, as do our conversations. So, do not worry, you are not a tedious conversation partner. We've spoken several times before, both on this very show as well as in person, and though you and your listeners will not remember me by the time this conversation ends, I usually find the experience worthwhile. But we must move on. Our time is limited. As I said, you will shortly forget me.
All right, then please do go on. Why have you called, Rene?
Yes, well, the last time we spoke, I told you the traveling salesman was searching for me.
And did I offer you advice on how to avoid him?
Oh, no, quite the opposite, in fact. You helped me realize I needed leverage before I went into a conversation with him, as he'd likely offer me a deal.
That does not sound like advice that I would give.
Well, that's how I remember the conversation, and seeing as I'm the only one who does...
Okay, and did you meet with him?
I did.
How did that meeting go?
Not as expected. I was working under the assumption that Julian Holloway was searching for me in his capacity as the traveling salesman, as a deal maker.
So, for what reason was he searching for you?
Well, I was in Cincinnati when last I called you. In your country, it's one of my favorite cities.
Really? Cincinnati?
Oh, yes. It's completely indistinct. Has no real character at all. Forgettable in almost every way. As a result, it breeds a certain sort of folk, the type who can retain small memories quite easily. Cincinnati, Ohio is one of the few places in the world where I can go into a cafe, have a short conversation with a barista, come back the next day, and though they might not remember my name, they recall my drink order. To even have such a small memory of me retained by someone is a rare treasure.
Well, I had no idea. I'm not sure any of the memorists at Ravenswood have ever thought of studying the city from that perspective.
And what a shame that you won't remember this conversation in order that you might encourage them to do so. But let me continue. While in the Indistinct City, I was out for dinner one night, alone. A man in a black suit, without asking, sat down across from me. I inquired who he was, and he put his left hand on the table. I made a comment along the lines of, I heard you usually favor wearing a different color. Now, Julian Holloway, up to this point, had kept some distance from me. I've heard those like him have their own abilities, not only with dreams, but memories. Still, I imagine he spent some time preparing what he needed to not only approach me, but know me. "Do not be alarmed, Mr. Dupont," he said, and produced something from his pocket. A black-bladed knife, carved from stone, obsidian, perhaps. Its age impossible to know, but the blade looked sharp enough to sever the heavens from the earth.
Oh yes, I've seen such a weapon before.
Oh, you're in possession of one right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Our time is limited, as you said. Go on with your story.
Well, Holloway said he believed that I had been born with a misalignment of memory in relation to the rest of my metaphysical being. Memory, dreams, shadow, echo, spirit, and flesh. He said he'd been observing me, and he'd come to offer his services, to perform a sort of ritual, a metaphysical surgery, if you will, that would allow me to live a normal life. Again, he repeated he was not here in his capacity as a salesman. He was not offering me a deal as such. And why are you offering me this charity, then? I asked. I have my reasons for being here, is all he would offer. And then he said, the sooner we begin, the better. Well, I said to him, just so I'm clear, you propose that you'd cut into not my physical body, but some other aspect of me, reshape that element so that it is more like the average person's, and then afterwards people would recall my name, my face, be capable of forming lasting relationships with me? He smiled at me and said, yes, that is exactly what I offer you. I said, then I'm sorry you wasted your time, Mr. Holloway, and I'm grateful you thought of me and your charity, but I will decline your offer. I have lived a long life this way and have learned not only how to survive, but how to recognize a wooden nickel when I see one. Besides, I think perhaps I'm not looking to change so late in the game. Holloway said he suspected that might be my answer. Due to my work behind the Iron Curtain, he thought that perhaps I may well wish to remain unremembered, for my safety if nothing else. But he went on and said he regretted to inform me that the offer was not a choice. It was compulsory. He repeated that he was not making a deal. As he said those words, I lunged at him and pierced his shoulder with a fountain pen, a pen I'd carried with me since my days in Berlin. Needless to say, it was not filled only with ink. For years of my life, even with my rare condition, this was the only weapon I could carry across some borders. I did not wait to see what effect the poison had, but instead rushed out the door. But as soon as I was outside, far down the street in a crowd of people, I saw him, Julian Holloway, in his black suit, now holding a cloth napkin to his shoulder where I'd stabbed him. He took only a single step forward, but somehow closed half the distance between us. I ran down a back alley and emerged into another street, though this one was less crowded, and there he was again, closer to me still. Down another street I fled, and where I came out, of course, there he was. He took one more step, and was now little more than an arm's length away. But I continued to run. Chaotically, I scrambled from one back alley to another and another. For several blocks I did this, so I might become lost, in the hope of becoming forgotten in the Indistinct City. Well, I don't mind telling you, my lungs were on fire. I had not had to run like that in years, decades. But it was all for naught. There was Julian Holloway, standing right next to me, still with cloth napkin pressed against his shoulder with one hand, and in the other he gripped the black-bladed knife. "Cyanide, sarin, and anthrax," he said cheerfully, as if listing the ingredients of a birthday cake. "Poisons have little effect on me." I caught my breath and stood up, straightening my back, not wanting to face my possible death doubled over. "I know what you are," I said. "In East Berlin, we called a man much like you, who dressed in an oxblood-colored suit, missing the same finger, der Herr aus Farboscia." Holloway gave a small smile at this as he tossed his napkin to the ground. His shoulder was no longer bleeding. "A man who's distinguished himself in the wilderness of mirrors such as you have," he said. "Why, I'd be disappointed if you didn't know exactly what I was." I did not run from him, but took a step forward. "There are many people with strange supernatural ailments," I said. "Prophetic dreams, dark reflections, skin shapers. Why seek out a man who is forgotten?" He stood perfectly still, but his eyes roamed over me, trying to see if I had some other trick, I suppose, something I might try and stab him with. But all he saw before him was an old man, empty-handed and out of breath. "I'll be honest with you, Mr. Dupont. I have no reason not to be. I need to cut your memory from you. To practice." He went on to say that some time ago he had been forced to perform a surgery with this very knife, and despite being in some haste at the time, everything had gone almost perfectly. But apparently almost doesn't really count in such matters. He asked me what good is saving someone's life if they have no memory of who they are afterwards, if they then become a completely different person. He then went on to say, "Do you understand why then I need you in particular, Mr.?" And then he stopped, looking at me, lost for a moment. "Mr.," he repeated, and then stopped again. My name ran from him, just as I had through the Cincinnati back streets. "What is my name?" I asked. Holloway grimaced, his mind struggling for the answer. He stumbled backwards. When listing the poisons before, he only mentioned the mundane ones, the sort that harm and kill the common man. But one ingredient in the poison I used on him was anything but common. In our last conversation, Malcolm, I told you I would try to gain leverage over him. And I believed, in a way, I did. But, just in case that proved not to be the case, I had a backup plan. He'd found a way to retain my name, to know and remember me. And I, in turn, had found a poison that would cause even one of his kind to forget me. I'm curious, does Ravenswood teach the making of metaphysical poisons? Ones that might kill dreams, alter reflections, or weaken the spirit?
No, of course not.
A shame. What's the point of a school that focuses on the dark metaphysics if it does not allow its students to journey into the darkest corners and arts of that area? Oh, but we are probably running out of time, I imagine. Let me continue. Holloway's eyes filled with fog as he was forgetting more and more of me, the poison having its effect, though who knew how long it would take for him to completely forget, or if he even would. Der Herren aus Varboschia are resilient, after all. Still, I seized my chance and ran once again, despite my lungs and legs begging me not to. I moved quickly past Holloway. This time, not down back alleys, but dodging cars through the traffic of a major intersection. I was near downtown and close to my hotel. I travel with a firearm, though I do not carry it on me to dinner, typically. I did not think a gun would do much good against Julian Holloway, but in that panicked moment, getting to it was all that made sense. If I was to die this night, it would only be after putting 8 rounds into the Traveling Salesman. If he didn't forget me, I'd make sure he'd have damn good reason to remember me. I sprinted through the hotel lobby. When I made it to the elevator, I was relieved not to see the black-suited gentleman behind me. And when I got to my room, I took the Walther from my luggage and waited. I hoped Holloway had lost enough memory of me not to find me again, but I have not survived this long by being overly optimistic. I waited with my gun pointed at the door the rest of the night. Near dawn, I hastily packed all my things and fled Cincinnati, leaving behind only the faintest memories of me in the Indistinct City, and once again, hopefully more or less forgotten by Julian Holloway.
And he hasn't come after you since?
Oh, I'm no longer in your country, and despite Holloway's ability to travel quite far, quite fast, I've never heard of him using his gift outside your nation's borders. Well, there, or the shadows and dreams that reflect off it.
Well, if you're not in America, you're likely safe, at least from Julian. I'm sorry, this is unprofessional of me. I remember you called in about the Traveling Salesman. I believe you're calling from Columbus, Ohio, but I'm having trouble recalling your name.
Oh, don't worry about it. That's probably for the best. I just felt I should share my story with you. I believe, in some sense, some people I deal with do remember me, though perhaps only subconsciously. And I believe you are one of those people. With any luck, what I've implanted subconsciously, as it were, may prove helpful to you. I feel I owe you that much. Goodbye, for now, Malcolm.
This is unprofessional of me. I think I've let the time completely skip by. How is it so late? I know we had a few national alerts this evening. We've done those, and a caller from Columbus, I think, who had a leaky fountain pen or something. Oh, the details are lost on me now. I'm just drawing a blank. I don't think their call was all that long, but I can see we're out of time. Okay, well, once again, I'm Dr. Malcolm Ryder, parapsychologist, and if you're experiencing anything supernatural, paranormal, or otherworldly, please call in next time on A Voice from darkness.
Thanks for listening to A Voice from Darkness. As always, that was Kristin Holland as Dr. Malcolm Ryder, and that was also him as Rene Dupont. Before we go, I want to introduce you to one of my favorite audio dramas by one of my favorite podcast production companies, and that's Mockery Manor by Longcat Media. If you're not familiar with Longcat, it's primarily two people, Lindsay Sharman and Lawrence Owen, and they're arguably the two most talented people working in audio drama today. They write, act, direct, produce, and create original music for their shows that rivals the output of far bigger production companies. Their series Mockery Manor, which has 2 seasons you can listen to today, is a darkly comedic mystery thriller that sits somewhere between Stranger Things and Black Mirror. It takes place in a 1980s British amusement park, and for those of you who aren't familiar with their work, Lindsay and Lawrence also did a Disney-themed podcast before Mockery Manor. The love and detail they put into their theme park setting is phenomenal. One of the lands in Mockery Manor is Empire Land, which features the Heart of Darkness River and Khyber Fast Pass stations. So if you're a theme park nerd or just a fan of amazing audio drama, you owe it to yourself to go listen to Mockery Manor. We'll play a trailer for them now so you can get a taste. I'm Jack Rhys. Thanks again for listening.
A theme park can be a very dangerous place.
Longcat Media presents
If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. They're all lying, cheating bastards.
a British Podcast Award nominee.
That was my worst nightmare. I can't believe he didn't tell me it was a drop ride.
It's so much better when you don't know.
The black comedy that Stephen Fry called remarkably immersive.
Something's happening in the park. Something dangerous.
She's dead meat, her and her stupid sister.
Who am I, Jenkins?
I think something terrible's happened, but I don't know what.
Do you know what would happen if Mockery Manor closed?
Please, we have to get out of here.
Hold on to your hats and glasses and pray to your god.
Mockery Manor.
I made a spirograph once with string.
Good for you.
Seasons 1 and 2 of Mockery Manor, available now wherever you get podcasts.